Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Hope your weekends were great. Hope you had lots of fun. In this video, we're going to kind of cover the one major thing that we didn't cover on the podcast with respect to what happened at E3 last week. So what is it I'm alluding to, you might ask? Well, like I said, E3 happened last week and Microsoft announced something rather large. A new console, in fact. It's the Xbox One X. So this is kind of like the mid-cycle kind of refresh that we've heard about. It was previously known as Project Scorpio. You might have heard that name around the internet for the last year or so. And yeah, this is supposed to be kind of like a refresh to the current generation. But in the case specifically of the Xbox One X, this is, you know, one hell of a refresh. There's a lot to talk about with it. There's a lot that's new, some that's the same. But we're going to cover everything here. I'm going to compare it to the Ps4 Pro. Both in terms of specifications, but also in terms of like games, why you might want this and why you might not, why you might want to get a PlayStation, you know, and we're just gonna kind of take a look at it from a kind of a bigger perspective, right? So yeah, I've kind of broken this down into categories to kind of help make it easier for us to go through, and I think we're gonna jump into our first one now, which is of course games, because and you know, I can't speak for everybody, but I think that I can speak for a lot of people when I say that, you know, the reason you would buy one console over another, like in this case, Xbox versus PlayStation, is probably, you know, because the games that are on it. You know, I've never, and again, I can't speak for everybody, but I've never met a person that said something to the effect of, oh, I bought the PlayStation because I like the controller more. I bought the PlayStation because of the way it looks. Stuff like that. It's way more often than not because there's specific games that you want to play on this platform. So yeah, let's talk about some games. Let's talk about some of the exclusives. Let's talk about, you know, basically the biggest reasons, I think anyway, why you would buy these consoles. Each one of them has a lot of exclusive titles, and they're both very, very good in that respect. There's a lot of games that are only on those platforms. So let's take a look. I have, you guys can see here, I got a whole bunch of stuff open here, and this is just two different Chrome browsers with a list of a bunch of different exclusive titles on each platform. So I guess we'll start off with Xbox, because that's kind of the main reason why we're making the video here. So some of the exclusive titles are on Xbox that you guys might already be aware of. You got stuff like Forza, which is an awesome driving game. You've got Gears of War, which has been around for a long time, since the Xbox 360 when the first one debuted on it. It's a really, really fun game. I haven't played the latest one, but I've been meaning to. You've got Halo, of course. I mean, everybody knows Halo. It's been an exclusive to the Xbox since the dawn of time, since the first Xbox. What else we got? Dead Rising, of course. Dead Rising is a very fun zombie game. The latest one is pretty interesting. I haven't gotten a chance to check it out, but I've seen some gameplay and it looks really fun. Then, of course, we got Rise, Son of Rome. State of Decay, which, if you haven't played State of Decay, that's another zombie game, but it's really, really, really fun. Huge open world. Yeah, there's a lot to do in there, so definitely check that one out. And of course, last but not least, Quantum Break, which had some growing pains, but was still a very interesting game. Now, admittedly, a lot of these games that I mentioned that are on the Xbox One S and One X, you can also get them on PC, but for the purposes of today's video, we're kind of just looking, you know, Xbox and PlayStation. We really want to compare these two, because these are kind of like the equivalent of, you know, the two biggest. I mean, I don't want to exclude Nintendo because they're huge as well, but in terms of like, you know, Nintendo just always done their own thing. In terms of, you know, these are the two kind of biggest going head-to-head kind of consoles. Nintendo doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't compete at all, but they've always just kind of done their own thing. The Xbox and PlayStation are very, you know, butting heads, right? But yeah, anyway, moving on. So some of the exclusives we got on the PlayStation side include like Bloodborne, which is a really crazy game. God of War series, that's been around since PS2 days, so that's been around for a very long time. There's a new one coming out. Me and Josh talked about that in our podcast recently. Horizon Zero Dawn, of course. The Order 1886, sorry. Last of Us, obviously, really, really, really insane game. I haven't gotten a chance to finish it yet, but I have played some of it, and I love it. Like, that's one of the few games that made me want to get a PlayStation initially, because that game is really fun. Then, of course, you've got Until Dawn, which is like a horror game, and, oh, yeah, of course, Uncharted. The Uncharted series has been around for quite some time as well. Very, very popular, very interesting series. There's a new one of those coming out as well, so stay, you know, be sure to check those out. But these are some of the exclusives that are on each console, and you know, whether the games that are on there interest you is totally up to you. I can't speak for you in that sense, but you know, there's very, very different exclusives, right? Like on Microsoft, it's, you know, very how can I say it, like a lot of the games that are on Microsoft that are exclusives, not all of them, but a lot of them, like Halo, Gears of War, Dead Rising, stuff like that's been around for a very long time, and PlayStation has some of those as well. But there's a lot of new ones that are coming on to PlayStation as well that are very interesting, that that might make you interested. So the other thing that relates to gaming that I wanted to talk about as well is, of course, virtual reality, because that's, you know, the big new cool kid in town, VR, right? Well, this is the one area where right now, as the time of filming this video, the PlayStation 4 wins, and the only reason it wins is because it's the only one of the two that has a VR option right now, which of course is PSVR. I haven't gotten to try it out myself, but it looks really, really cool. I haven't gotten to try anything VR, unfortunately, short of Google Cardboard, so I'm not very familiar with that whole thing. But yeah, there's no option for anything VR in the Xbox right now. Now, Microsoft is working on it. They are working on some VR headsets, or so they say, but we don't have anything official from them at this point. So for now, PS4 hands down wins. If VR is something you're interested in, then, you know, PS4 Pro is going to be the way to go. But moving on, the next thing I wanted to talk about was kind of the interface and the entertainment possibilities with these. Now, the interface, again, this is a very subjective thing. They're both very different. PS4, you know, it's been what it always is, and Xbox is doing Xbox One X and One S are moving like towards like the Windows kind of look, like with the tiles and everything. That's a very, very subjective thing. Which of the two you like? I can't tell you what you like, but I can tell you they're both very different and they're both very interesting. As far as the entertainment part of it, this is where they're both very close. Like if you want to just stream Netflix or YouTube, or if you want to like listen to music on like Spotify or on YouTube even, you know, they're both going to take care of that, no problem. The only one area where the Xbox One X really shines, and even the One S has this, that the PS4 and PS4 Pro don't, is of course 4K Blu-ray support. So if you're someone that really likes physical media, and really likes to, you know, get the best absolute quality out of your viewing experience, then the Xbox One X definitely takes the cake for that, because the PS4 and the PS4 Pro, although they both support Blu-rays, like standard 1080p Blu-rays, neither of them support 4K playback in terms of like physical media, which is interesting considering, you know, Sony owning that whole copyright and all of that, but that's a discussion for another time. So that would be the one area where the Xbox One S and One X both really, really shine. If you're a fan of 4K Blu-rays and you like I said, getting the best quality out of your viewing experience, those would be the way to go. But yeah, so with all of that said, the next thing to talk about, which some people care about, some people don't, but is still very, very important and really helps to make up the experience on either one of these consoles, is of course specs. What is actually, you know, what hardware is actually running inside of these machines, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to be powering all your games. And if you're the kind of person that likes to hang on to a console for a long time, then it's important. I mean, you know, I don't expect everyone to be quite as big of a gearhead as I am, because I live for this stuff, but it's important to know at least a little bit of what's going on inside. It might help you make a decision as to, you know, which one you're going to go with. So I have a chart here that I'm not going to show you. You guys can check this out, but I'm just going to fire off a couple of numbers here, just to give you guys some idea of what we're looking at in terms of differences. So the PS4 Pro, which has been out for about a year now, that has, you know, 8 gigs of GDDR5 memory. The PS4 Pro also comes with a terabyte hard drive stock, and its GPU, in terms of, this is the number that's in terms of raw computational horsepower, clocks in at about 4.2 teraflops. Now, the Xbox One X, and the PlayStation 4 Pro also has an 8-core processor that runs at 2.1 gigahertz. Now, the Xbox One X, similar story, different still though. You still get an 8-core processor. It's running a little bit faster, 200 megahertz faster at 2.3 gigs. You still get a terabyte hard drive, so that's the exact same. You do get more memory. Overall, the Xbox One X has 12 gigabytes of GDDR5, so you get a nice bump there. But the biggest change, compared to the PS4 Pro and compared to the Xbox One X, or One S, sorry, is the graphics horsepower. The Xbox One X has roughly 6 teraflops of graphics horsepower. Now, I know that might not make a lot of sense, but to maybe give a little bit of context for that, right now, in terms of PC components, the AMD RX 580 rather, has about 6.1 teraflops. And if I remember correctly, the GTX 1070 for NVIDIA is sitting at around 6.5 teraflops or so. So that gives you some idea of how much horsepower the Xbox One X has, which is honestly a lot. Like, that's a lot of horsepower. It's, It's 50% more than the PlayStation 4 Pro, and it's a roughly 4 times the horsepower compared to the Xbox One S. So this is a huge, huge, huge jump forward in terms of just what developers are going to be able to do with that platform, in terms of graphical fidelity, hopefully frame rate as well, all sorts of, the goodies that we like higher resolution textures, shaders, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, when you want to get into which one of these consoles is going to look better, it's still hard to say because obviously the Xbox One X isn't even out yet. But I would be surprised, to see if I would be surprised if developers weren't able to do more with the Xbox One X just because of how much more horsepower is built into this machine. There's a lot available there. I mean, I have in my computer a GTX 980 Ti, and it's a couple years old now. But when that card was new, it was about $700 US. Well, this whole console is $499 US. We'll talk about the price a little bit more in a minute, and you're getting pretty much the same graphics horsepower. So, that just, again, give you another, kind of point of reference for just how much Microsoft is packing into this thing. But yeah, enough of the numbers. Let's talk about price. As I just mentioned, the Xbox One X is $499 US, and this has been a little controversial. I don't really know why. People seem to be either... I'm one of the folks that's of the opinion of, yeah, that's kind of what I expected, around $500. But there's other people that are saying, this is too much money. This is really expensive. Well, I don't really understand that personally because, I mean, you go back, I mean, even the Xbox One, when the Xbox One first dropped, it was $500. When the PlayStation 3 first came out, I have to go back and double check, but I think that was around $600 or $700 US. I mean, the Xbox 360 was, I think, $500 or $600 when it first came out. Like, I don't see why this price is so controversial and why people are, upset about this. I mean, for the amount of horsepower that's packed in this thing, I think $500 is a steal. And this is the first time since maybe the PS3 and Xbox 360 days where I can legitimately say it would be difficult to build a PC that's comparable just in terms of raw horsepower for that price. Because to get a GPU that's even comparable to that is still about $250 US, and then you got to build the rest of the computer around it. So I mean, yeah, there's a lot that's put into this for the money. The PS4 Pro is coming in at $400 US, which is only $100 less. So it just depends. Again, whether this is something that you're comfortable with spending the extra money on. They did mention that any game that's going to be on the Xbox One X will be available on the One S. So in terms of exclusive titles for the One X, we don't really have anything in that regard. It's more just exclusive titles for the Xbox platform itself. So, I mean, really it's a question of how much are you willing to spend to get, maybe a higher frame rate or, better resolution textures or, just better graphics fidelity overall. That's up to you. I can't speak for you on that part. What I can tell you is that the Xbox One S recently got a price drop because of this and is now $250 US, which is a pretty darn good deal. I mean, it's half the price of the One X, right? So you're paying double the price, but you're getting about 4 times the performance. So, again, whether that's worth it is up to you. So there's, like I said, there's a lot to this. I mean, I could go on and on forever, but yeah, I think I'd like to kind of close this out just with some of my personal opinions, what I kind of think about, the two big titans of the console generation this time around, and then we'll close off. So, as far as I'm concerned, the biggest reason why you should buy any console, I personally think, is for the exclusive titles, is for the games. Because, I mean, if you didn't care about exclusive titles or not, then we probably wouldn't even have consoles. It would probably just be PCs, I think. I could be wrong. Let me know. But, yeah, definitely, I would say you should buy your console based on the games you want to play. Now, console gamers also have the choice of what kind of graphics fidelity they want to play at, which is very interesting, because previously that's never really been a thing. It's always been, Xbox, then 360, then the One, then we had PS1, 2, 3, and now 4. It was always very, very segregated and separated in that sense, as in when a new console came out, the old one, I don't want to say completely died off, but, I mean, they would make games for it for a little while, and then eventually it would only be the new one. So in this sense, you don't really have that issue. Like, if you buy an Xbox One still, or a One S, you don't have to worry about that getting cut out anytime soon. There's going to be games made for that for years still. So this is just more of a matter of what kind of fidelity do you want to play at? but you should always buy your games, or your consoles rather, based on the games you want to play. The only time that this might change, maybe, and I could be totally wrong, would be when Microsoft does eventually get around to releasing their VR headset. It's going to depend on what exclusive games are available on that, but for what it's worth, in my opinion, based on based on the fact that it's running a version of Windows 10 and also that it has a lot more horsepower, I would imagine the VR experience on the Xbox One X is probably going to be better than PS4 or PS4 Pro, but it's hard to say because this console's not released and we don't have any word on VR stuff from Microsoft right now, so only time will tell on that one. But what I can say is that PS4 Pro, yes, it can do VR, but I mean, the amount of horsepower it has, how long is it going to be until, or how much are developers going to have to cut down games to make them run on this? Because it, like, barely, in terms of desktop VR, it would barely make the cut. The Xbox One X, on the other hand, is, be able to run even stuff that the Oculus and the HTC Vive run. It would have enough horsepower to do that. So in terms of quote-unquote future-proofing, and if you something VR is something you're really enthused about, unless there's exclusive titles on the PlayStation side, maybe you might consider an Xbox One X for that, because it certainly has more horsepower to make that happen for you. But again, I can't speak for you guys. This is all just my opinion, which is why I saved my opinion stuff for the end. We'll get the facts out of the way first. And I think that's pretty much just going to about do it. I think I've rambled on for long enough now. But if there's anything that you think I should have mentioned but I didn't, definitely let me know down below. And, of course, like the video if you liked it. Feel free to share it with your friends. Share it around the internet. Yeah, stay tuned. We'll be back for the podcast as per usual on Saturday. So until next time, yeah, I'll see you guys next time.